Did you know that more than 60% of America's largest cities are struggling with massive budget shortfalls, soaring debt, or failing infrastructure? Some of them are already cutting police, closing schools, and even warning they might not afford basic services like trash collection or clean drinking water. These are not tiny towns you've never heard of. They're major U.S. cities that millions of people call home. What's even more alarming is that many of these financial cracks are hidden from plain sight, quietly growing year after year. So the question is, which cities are on the verge of collapse, and could your city be next? Stick with me, because some names on this list will truly shock you. Number 1. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, the third largest city in the United States, is known for its stunning skyline, deep dish pizza, and rich history. But behind the bright lights and busy streets lies a financial storm that many experts call one of the most severe in the country. The city is drowning in pension debt, estimated at more than $33 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than the total budgets of several U.S. states combined. Year after year, officials scramble to find money to cover these promises, but the hole only gets deeper. What makes it worse is that Chicago's pension system has been underfunded for decades, and now the bill is coming due, hard and fast. The effects are already being felt by residents. Property taxes have been rising steadily, leaving homeowners frustrated as they pay more but often feel like they're getting less. Essential services such as public schools, public transportation, and even policing are under financial pressure. A report from the Civic Federation described the situation as a slow-motion fiscal collapse, and many Chicago families are voting with their feet, choosing to pack up and leave the city altogether. In fact, Chicago has been losing population for years, creating another painful cycle. Fewer residents mean less tax revenue, which makes it even harder to cover the city's growing bills. Perhaps the most alarming part is that there's no easy way out. Raising taxes further risks pushing even more people away, while cutting services would make the city less livable. Bankruptcy, once considered unthinkable for a city of this size, is no longer off the table according to some analysts. For many Chicagoans, it feels like living on the edge of a financial cliff, unsure of when the ground beneath them will finally give way. Chicago is still a world-class city, but its finances are a ticking time bomb. Number 2. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit is often remembered as the city that fell the hardest. Once the crown jewel of American industry, home to the booming auto companies that fueled the nation's middle class, Detroit has become the symbol of urban financial collapse. In 2013, the city made history by filing for the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history, with more than $18 billion in debt. At the time, streetlights didn't work in entire neighborhoods. Thousands of abandoned homes lined the streets, and essential services were so broken that residents often felt completely forgotten. It was a financial and social unraveling unlike anything America had seen before. Since then, Detroit has tried to rebuild its image. Billionaires have invested in downtown projects, trendy restaurants have opened, and there are pockets of revitalization that attract tourists and young professionals. But beyond the shiny new buildings lies a very different story. A large part of Detroit still struggles with poverty, crime, and blight. Many neighborhoods remain filled with vacant lots, schools lack resources, and unemployment is still higher than the national average. A 2024 report from Wayne State University even described Detroit's recovery as fragile and uneven, warning that without deeper structural change, the city could slide back into crisis. The painful truth is that Detroit's challenges run deeper than a single bankruptcy. The population has fallen from nearly 1.9 million in 1950 to under 640,000 today. That means fewer people paying taxes to support a city built for 3 times as many residents. This shrinking tax base makes it nearly impossible to fund schools, maintain infrastructure, or keep up with pensions. While Detroit has made progress, it still walks a tightrope between renewal and collapse. For many residents, daily life is a reminder that one of America's greatest cities has not yet escaped the shadow of financial ruin. Number 3. Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore is a city full of history, culture, and pride, but underneath that legacy lies a financial struggle that is growing more serious each year. Once an industrial hub, Baltimore has been hit hard by population loss, with more than 40,000 residents leaving in the past decade alone. When people move away, they take their tax dollars with them, leaving behind a city government that is forced to do more with less. According to the Maryland Policy Institute, Baltimore's shrinking tax base is one of the biggest threats to its future stability, creating a dangerous cycle of higher taxes, declining services, and even more residents fleeing. At the same time, Baltimore is wrestling with challenges that make recovery even harder. Crime rates remain among the highest in the nation, which discourages businesses from investing and families from staying. Public schools are underfunded, infrastructure is aging, and neighborhoods often feel neglected. In some areas, residents complain about unreliable trash collection, broken water systems, and streets that go unrepaired for years. For many locals, it feels like they're paying more, but receiving less in return, a frustration that only deepens the sense of distrust in city leadership. The real danger is that Baltimore's problems feed into each other. A declining population weakens the economy, a weak economy limits city services, and failing services push even more people to leave. Without bold reforms and serious investment, Baltimore risks becoming a case study in urban decline. It's a reminder that financial ruin doesn't always arrive suddenly. It creeps in slowly, until one day the damage feels almost impossible to reverse. Baltimore still has the potential to thrive, but unless something changes, its financial future looks increasingly uncertain. We pour countless hours into bringing you these deep dives, so if you found this video valuable, show your support. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts on which city surprised you the most, and hit subscribe. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 4. San Francisco, California. San Francisco is often seen as one of the wealthiest cities in America, home to tech giants, billion-dollar startups, and some of the most expensive real estate in the world. But beneath that glittering image, the city is quietly facing a financial crisis. In 2024, officials reported a staggering $780 million budget deficit, and the outlook for the next few years looks even worse. The biggest problem? San Francisco relies heavily on taxes from commercial real estate, and ever since the shift to remote work, its once bustling downtown office towers have emptied out. With fewer businesses paying into the system, the city's financial foundation is crumbling. But it's not just about empty offices. San Francisco is struggling with issues that drain both its money and its reputation. Homelessness has surged, making national headlines as tents line sidewalks just blocks from luxury condos. Crime and drug use in certain areas have scared away tourists and businesses alike, shrinking one of the city's biggest sources of revenue. As tax income falls, city leaders face an impossible choice: cut services, raise taxes even higher, or watch the city's finances spiral further out of control. Moody's even labeled San Francisco a high-risk metro, a shocking statement for what was once considered one of America's most powerful cities. For residents, this means daily life is changing. Trash collection takes longer, public transit feels less reliable, and city improvements are delayed. Meanwhile, the cost of living remains among the highest in the nation, driving more families and small businesses to leave altogether. San Francisco is a city of contrasts: tech billionaires on one side, a shrinking middle class on the other. But one thing is clear: if its financial problems continue to grow unchecked, even the wealth of Silicon Valley may not be enough to save it. Number 5. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is famous for its music, food, and festivals. But behind the celebrations lies a city struggling to stay financially afloat. For years, New Orleans has faced the twin challenges of natural disasters and underfunded city finances. Hurricanes like Katrina and Ida left behind billions of dollars in damage. But the deeper issue is that the city has never fully rebuilt its financial foundation. According to reports from the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, New Orleans continues to battle a growing burden of pension costs, budget shortfalls, and infrastructure failures. In fact, the city has had to delay or reduce basic services simply because there isn't enough money to go around. Residents feel these problems every day. Trash pickup has become unreliable. Streets are filled with potholes and emergency response times lag. Even the city's water and drainage systems, essential in a place so vulnerable to flooding, are outdated and constantly breaking down. Locals often complain about paying higher fees and taxes, yet watching their services decline. For a city that depends heavily on tourism, this creates another layer of risk. Visitors may enjoy Mardi Gras and jazz clubs, but they also see the cracks in the city's foundation, both literally and financially. The most troubling part is that New Orleans has very few easy solutions. Raising taxes further risks pushing out residents who are already struggling with low wages and high living costs. Cutting services could make the city even less livable, especially for vulnerable communities. And while tourism helps bring in revenue, it's not enough to cover billions in long-term liabilities. In many ways, New Orleans represents the fragile balancing act of many American cities, rich in culture but dangerously poor in finances. Without major reform, the Big Easy could find itself facing big problems it can't escape. Number 6. Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi might not be the largest city on this list, but its financial struggles have become some of the most visible in the nation. Over the past few years, Jackson has faced a crisis that goes beyond budgets and numbers. Its water system collapsed. In 2022, hundreds of thousands of residents were left without safe running water, forcing families to line up for bottled supplies. While the immediate disaster made national headlines, the deeper problem is years of chronic underinvestment, declining revenue, and mismanagement. Jackson's finances have been stretched thin for decades, and the water crisis was just the most painful symptom of a much larger disease. At the heart of the issue is a shrinking population. Over the last few decades, Jackson has steadily lost residents, leaving fewer people to pay taxes to maintain a city built for many more. This shrinking tax base means schools go underfunded, streets crumble, and public safety suffers. The Brookings Institution described Jackson as a warning sign of what happens when infrastructure is ignored, highlighting how the city's weak finances have made it nearly impossible to address its basic needs. The result is a vicious cycle. Failing infrastructure drives people away, which drains even more money from the system. For the people who remain, daily life is filled with uncertainty. Will the water be safe to drink tomorrow? Will police or emergency services arrive in time? And will their taxes keep climbing while services continue to fall apart? These aren't abstract policy debates. They're real struggles that impact families every day. Jackson is a powerful reminder that financial ruin doesn't just threaten balance sheets. It can strip away the most basic necessities of modern life. Without massive federal or state support, Jackson risks becoming unlivable for the very people it was built to serve. Number 7. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis was once a thriving industrial and cultural powerhouse, but today it faces a financial storm that is becoming harder to ignore. The city's biggest challenge is its rapidly declining population. In 1950, St. Louis was home to over 850,000 people. Today, that number has fallen below 300,000. With fewer residents paying into the tax system, the city struggles to cover its growing costs. This shrinking tax base has created severe budget gaps, forcing tough choices about which services to fund and which to cut. It's a slow erosion that eats away at the city's financial foundation. The effects are visible in everyday life. Many neighborhoods, especially on the city's north side, suffer from blight, poverty, and crime. Public schools are underfunded, infrastructure is deteriorating, and public safety resources are stretched thin. Residents complain about long response times for emergencies, and businesses hesitate to invest in areas that feel unsafe or unstable. These issues don't just hurt quality of life, they also push more people to leave, worsening the cycle. The city leadership has tried different strategies to spark revitalization, but the financial hole is deep, and progress often feels like one step forward and two steps back. What makes St. Louis's situation especially alarming is that the city risks being hollowed out completely. Without new industries, stronger population growth, or outside support, it could become a city unable to support itself. For many longtime residents, the fear isn't just about higher taxes or weaker services, it's about the survival of their hometown. St. Louis still has cultural gems like the Gateway Arch and a proud history, but unless its financial trajectory changes, it risks becoming a shadow of its former self, remembered more for its decline than its glory. Number 8. Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford, the capital of Connecticut, might not be as large or as well known as some of the other cities on this list, but its financial struggles run just as deep, if not deeper. For years, Hartford has been on the edge of insolvency, so much so that in 2017, it even considered state-level bankruptcy support. The core problem is that the city has a very limited tax base compared to its expenses. With a relatively small population of around 120,000 residents, Hartford is responsible for the heavy costs of running a capital city, funding pensions, debt payments, and essential services. According to a Pew Charitable Trust's study, Hartford is one of the least fiscally resilient cities in America. For the average resident, this translates into constant financial pressure. Property taxes in Hartford are among the highest in the nation, yet residents often feel they get little in return. Schools struggle with underfunding, public safety is stretched, and infrastructure needs go unmet. Meanwhile, the city's commercial sector has shrunk, leaving fewer businesses to contribute to tax revenues. As companies and wealthier families move to surrounding suburbs, Hartford is left with the costs, but without the income needed to sustain them. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket. No matter how much money flows in, more keeps draining away. The most worrying part is that Hartford has very few ways out of its crisis. Raising taxes further could push out even more families and businesses, while cutting services would only accelerate the city's decline. In some ways, Hartford is a cautionary tale, a city that tried to carry financial burdens far heavier than its population could support. Unless there is significant restructuring or outside intervention, Hartford risks slipping into a future where basic services are unsustainable, leaving residents to shoulder the fallout of decades of poor planning and economic stagnation. Number 9. Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, once known as the sixth city for its booming population and industrial might, has been struggling with financial and social challenges for decades. At its peak in 1950, Cleveland had nearly 915,000 residents. Today, that number has fallen to under 370,000, leaving the city with a fraction of its original tax base. This steep decline has made it nearly impossible to fund the infrastructure, schools, and public services designed for a much larger population. According to the city's 2024 budget report, Cleveland continues to face major gaps in housing, education, and public health funding. For the people who live there, these gaps are hard to miss. More than 30% of Cleveland residents live in poverty, one of the highest rates of any large U.S. city. Entire neighborhoods are dotted with abandoned homes and vacant lots, making it harder to attract new businesses or families. Schools are underfunded, crime rates remain a serious concern, and city resources are stretched thin trying to manage it all. While downtown has seen some revitalization with new restaurants, sports arenas, and lakefront projects, the benefits haven't reached many struggling communities. For too many Clevelanders, prosperity feels like it's happening elsewhere. The danger is that Cleveland risks being stuck in a cycle of uneven recovery. Without massive investment in housing, jobs, and infrastructure, the city may never fully break free from its financial struggles. Local leaders have big plans for development, but those plans require money, and that's exactly what Cleveland doesn't have enough of. The city is a powerful reminder that while parts of urban America can bounce back, others remain caught in decline. For Cleveland, the question is no longer just about rebuilding its finances, but whether it can restore hope for the people who call it home. Number 10. Oakland, California. Oakland, sitting just across the bay from San Francisco, has long been overshadowed by its wealthy neighbor. But while San Francisco faces its own financial storm, Oakland's situation is even more urgent. In 2023, Oakland declared a fiscal emergency after projecting a massive $360 million budget deficit. The city warned that without drastic action, it would be forced to lay off workers, slash services, and cut programs that residents depend on. For a city already grappling with rising crime and homelessness, the announcement was a chilling sign of just how fragile its finances have become. The financial trouble stems from several sources. Oakland's police overtime costs have ballooned, fueled by rising crime and staffing shortages. Meanwhile, the city has been hit with declining business tax revenues as companies close or move elsewhere. Pandemic aftershocks made the problem worse, emptying offices and reducing income from downtown businesses. At the same time, Oakland is expected to meet growing demands for housing, public safety, and social services, needs that far outpace the city's shrinking income. The result is a financial gap that grows wider each year, leaving city leaders scrambling for temporary fixes instead of long-term solutions. For Oakland residents, this financial crisis is more than numbers on a page. It's a daily reality. Parks and libraries face cuts, road repairs are delayed, and essential services like public safety are under strain. Some fear Oakland could follow the path of Detroit, sliding into bankruptcy if deeper reforms aren't made soon. The city has a vibrant culture, a rich history of activism, and a diverse community, but without a financial turnaround, these strengths may not be enough to shield it from collapse. Oakland's future now depends on whether it can reinvent itself before the money and the trust of its residents runs out. As we've seen, cities across America, big and small, are walking a dangerous financial tightrope. From Chicago's crushing pension debt to Jackson's collapsing water system, and from Hartford's shrinking tax base to Oakland's budget emergency, the warning signs are everywhere. What's most striking is that these problems don't happen overnight. They build slowly through years of poor planning, shrinking populations, and tough economic shifts. And when the cracks finally show, it's the residents who feel the weight through higher taxes, fewer services, and a declining quality of life. But this isn't just about the 10 cities we covered. Their struggles represent a larger story about America's urban future. If cities cannot fix these systemic problems, the impact won't be limited to their boundaries. It will spill over into surrounding communities, states, and eventually the nation's economy as a whole. That's why it's so important to pay attention to these warning signs now, before more cities slide into financial ruin. So what can be done to prevent these cities from collapsing further? While every city has unique challenges, there are some common solutions that could make a real difference. First, restructuring long-term debt and pension obligations is critical. Cities like Chicago and Hartford cannot dig their way out without tackling unsustainable pension promises. This may require tough negotiations with unions, adjustments to future benefits, or even state-level intervention to spread out the costs more fairly. Second, diversifying revenue sources can help reduce dependence on single industries or taxes. San Francisco's heavy reliance on commercial real estate has left it exposed when offices emptied out. Cities need to attract new industries like green energy, healthcare, or technology to broaden their economic base. This not only strengthens finances but also creates new jobs. Third, investing in infrastructure and essential services is key. Jackson's water crisis showed what happens when critical systems are ignored. Federal and state funding, combined with smarter local spending, can ensure that residents continue to have access to clean water, safe streets, and reliable schools. Strong infrastructure also makes cities more attractive to new businesses and families. Finally, community engagement and transparency matter. Residents are more likely to stay and invest in their city if they feel leaders are honest and solutions are fair. Clear communication about challenges, budgets, and future plans can rebuild trust between citizens and government. Financial ruin isn't inevitable. With bold leadership, tough decisions, and long-term planning, these cities can turn things around. But the clock is ticking, and waiting too long will only make the problems harder to fix. We've put an incredible amount of research and effort into creating this video for you. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which city's story shocked you the most and why? Share your thoughts in the comments. Then check out our previous video for even more insights. And don't forget, supporting us is just one click. Please subscribe to our channel so we can keep bringing you stories that matter.